So this is a short video on another aspect of the papacy of Pope John the 23rd, and that's ecumenism and interfaith dialogue. Just as the definitions are obviously in the iBook, and you need to learn them and understand them. But ecumenism is essentially where we have Christian groups and Christian denominations, or adherents and leaders from those denominations and different traditions, talking to one another. Now, the notion, or the purpose of that talking to one another, is not to convert them to their own way of thinking or to their own religious beliefs, but to form a better understanding and to work together for the common good in certain areas, social issues and those sorts of things. But it's about recognising what we have in common and promoting that rather than trying to argue over the differences. And interfaith dialogue is a very similar sort of thing to promote understanding and support and community amongst people of different faiths. So ecumenism is essentially where you'd have perhaps an Anglican bishop and the Pope meeting together. So you've got the Catholics and the Anglicans meeting together to work together to solve some of the world's problems. And that would be ecumenism, whereas interfaith dialogue, where we might have a Catholic bishop, an Anglican minister, and a Hindu leader and a Jewish rabbi meeting together to discuss issues and to promote understanding of their own faith and to understand one another's faith and those sorts of things. So that's a little bit of an outline of the two different terms. And what we have to look at is the way Pope John was instrumental in promoting both ecumenism and interfaith dialogue within his own papacy. And we've got some examples of this as we go through. As a reminder, this is only a very brief overview. The detailed information is in your iBook, and you need to learn that information very carefully. So one of the first examples that we have from Pope John's papacy was the Mater et Magistra, which was one of his papal encyclicals from May 1961, and that was on Christianity and social progress. So essentially, remember that this is about Christianity, not Catholicism. So this is reaching out to all Christians. He was seen as a leader of all Christians and also to all people. So he was sort of hoping that all Christian denominations might come together and work for the greater good of the world. So he was calling for all Christians. So that's a really important point. He's not just speaking to Catholics; he's speaking to all Christians. So that's an example there of with just focusing on Christianity, of your ecumenism. Okay. Then in December the 2nd, 1960, he met Geoffrey Francis Fisher, who was the Archbishop of Canterbury. The Archbishop of Canterbury is the head of the Anglican Church, the Church of England. So I'll just write that here, Church of England. So that was the first time that the Pope had met the Archbishop of Canterbury in over 400 years. So it's a massively significant meeting. And again, that's another example, really good example of ecumenism. So this step in the ecumenical activity of the Church, the Roman Catholic Church, opened its arms up to other denominations through the wording of his encyclicals and the calling on all Christians to work together, and through this meeting with Geoffrey Francis Fisher. So you must learn both of these examples as well as the other examples from the iBook. So here's another example of his focus on ecumenism. He was calling throughout his papacy for all churches to focus on their commonalities rather than letting their differences divide them. And the impact of this, because we always have to go back to the impact, is that Christians now found it really easy to know, understand and respect other religions, or it was the beginning of this. I shouldn't say it happened, it was the beginning of a process of Christians coming to understand each other much better. So one example of the impact of this is that we now have the Week of Prayer for Christian Unity, which we can link back to this idea of ecumenism that was promoted by Pope John the 23rd. So ecumenism changed the entire landscape of Christianity. Adherents of Christianity communicate with each other better than they had in the past, and churches accept each other and work together to aim to create a better religious society. So there's just a bit of a statement to that you might like to adopt and manipulate into your own writings. So Pope John the 23rd first mentions ecumenism in Mater et Magistra. That's when he first mentions it. He'd obviously shown in 1960 when he met Geoffrey Francis Fisher, the Archbishop of Canterbury. So what he was saying in that document was that he wanted faiths particularly Christian faiths, to come together and work for the greater good of the world. He really wanted to focus on how people could unite and ignore their differences to promote the common good, and to understand that they're all followers of Christ. So we've also got a couple more examples here. Good Pope John encouraged ecumenism to promote common gospel values, and he recognised that was what linked them all together, all the different Christian adherents, to work together for the good and following Jesus' footsteps, which he tried to live out, as we've already seen in the humanising role of the Pope section. So December 1960 is when he met the Most Reverend Geoffrey Francis Fisher. Again, it was the first time in 4 centuries that he'd met, that the Pope had met with, or that a Pope had met with the Archbishop of Canterbury. And this was a great step towards ecumenism prior to Mater et Magistra being written. So the impact of this again is that because of what he was able to introduce to an old age of systems of relations, Christians now found it easier to know and understand and respect other religions and other Christian denominations. Another example of interfaith dialogue that we have is the fact that he invited 2 Jewish rabbis to come along, and this isn't in this written on this sheet, but we've got 2 Jewish rabbis were invited to come along to the opening, I think it was, or into some of the panels and discussions for Vatican II. So that's another example of promoting interfaith dialogue, whereas all of these are examples of ecumenism. That's a clear example of interfaith dialogue, being open to allowing these people of a completely different faith, these non-Christians, to come into and to be a part of this important event. So again, the whole point was just changing the landscape of Christianity. People are promoting tolerance, promoting understanding, and promoting people to work together for the good of all faiths and for the good of all Christians. And again, we come back to this example. So the Week of Prayer for Christian Unity is just a good example where we can link that back to a really clear example of the actual impact of it.